Hello guys and welcome to another Idle Legions video. Today I will be talking about equipment sets. Now a lot of people have questions on what equipment to use on their certain heroes. Well, today I will try to answer some of those questions and go through each SSR hero on what possible sets you can use. Now first things first, regarding equipment sets, especially in the early game, it's hard for you to complete any equipment set. So one of the best ways to get equipment is to go to inventory and click this forge button. So what this does is it allows you to forge any equipment set by using your weapon tokens. So for example, if I wanted to forge a staff, I can use 9 weapon tokens and make a 3-star warlock staff. So you can do this with any set, and you have a limit of I believe 2 in a day, but that can increase as your level increases, and I think at the start you can only make 1 a day. So that's very good for beginners, especially those that can't complete equipment sets yet. And now on to the actual equipment guide. So here I have a graphic that I made to show you just the basic equipment sets. So as you can see, you have an attack set or a magic attack set. And the best way to know if your hero has an attack or magic's attack power is to check the icon. So as you can see near the attack, there is a sword icon, and near the magic attack, there's a staff icon. So in general, if your character is a tank, which are warriors and knights, you usually go dragon set or icebound set, imperial set, and or barb set. So those 4 are the main ones for those kinds of heroes. And in general, for damage characters such as archers, some warriors, or the mages, you tend to use the fury set or the warlock set. There are certain occasions also where your damage dealers or DPS have a second skill that has a cooldown ability, and it's really strong. So in that case, you might want to consider using an immortal set for attack users and a sage set for magic attack users. And lastly, for healers, generally you want to use an oracle set, but there are some people that tend to use sage sets for hybrid healers, which I'll talk about later when I go through each hero one by one. Alright, so now we're in the hero gallery, and I'll go through each SSR hero one by one. And hopefully, if future heroes come out, this guide will help you also think of what sets to use for certain heroes. So let's start with Mulan. So as you can see, Mulan is a knight, and she's also M attack or magic attack damage dealer or user. If you want to use her as a frontline tank, definitely you can go icebound, or you can go with the imperial set for her. But if you look through her skills, they're mostly magic attack damage, and it lowers MDef, so she's really good as if you keep using her abilities. So the best set for her would definitely be the Sage set, and then there is consideration for any of the tank sets on her if you're using her as your front 9. So Imperial, as I mentioned, and Icebound. Next is Fiona. Fiona is a mage damage dealer and a magic attack damage dealer. So she deals a lot of damage, and her second skill is also pretty good with a long cooldown. However, if her ability leads to a kill or an assist, the cooldown of it will be cleared. So it's really good that she can clear her own cooldown. So sometimes Sage set might not be as worth it. So for Fiona, I highly recommend the Warlock set. And then Sage set is a secondary set that you can consider, but Warlock is more preferred. And next, alright, we're going with Lior. He is a shaman and M attack user. So As mentioned, for healers, Oracle is definitely the best set. But there are some people who make a consideration for Sage set on healers because their second skill is always a cooldown skill. So first skill is cooldown, second skill is cooldown. So if you want to keep your healer to keep using abilities, Sage set is a good consideration. But in general, most healers, if they're your only healer, you use Oracle set. And Zahra is a assassin, single target DPS, and physical attack damage user. So in general, Zahra, high 10 second cooldown and a 10-second cooldown for her second ability. So there is a consideration for using a immortal set on her, and also Fury set. But I think Fury set is the best set for assassins, especially physical attack assassins. So Fury number 1, and then Immortal set number 2. And we're going to the Glacial Exiles. Amka is a mage. She is a magic attack user. And she has 2 abilities that have cooldowns. So again, Warlock set is good, and because she has 2 abilities with cooldowns, you can use Sage set on her. But in general, for DPS users or damage dealers, you want to use Oracle set. Sorry, Warlock set. Alright, we move on to Yoomir, one of the meta quote-unquote carry users. So he deals damage, he tanks, he does everything. He is a warrior and a physical attack user. So as a physical attack user, you just look at the left side of the graph that I showed. And his second skill is a passive ability. So you will never use the Immortal set on him. But there is consideration for using Dragon set. There's a consideration for using the Fury set if he's a damage dealer. But in general, I like to use the Barbarian set on him or the Dragon set. Those are the 2 sets you should be using on Yoomir. On to Miku. So Miku is a ranger, which is a physical DPS and does physical attack. So in general, Miku, hands down, I think is a Fury for her because she deals a lot of damage and attacks really fast. So Fury, I think, is the only consideration here. Immortal, if you want to keep using her second ability, which does more area of effect damage and also freezes the target for 1 second. But I highly recommend Fury for her. Next is Sota or the Yeti. He's an assassin, physical attack. So Fury is number 1 for assassins. There is a consideration for using the Immortal set. Other than those 2, those are the only sets I recommend. If you consider using him as a tank, then maybe you want to use a dragon set on him because he is pretty tanky for an assassin, but that's a very rare case. On to the Seven Seas Federation. Moray or Soulblade. He is a knight. He is a magic attack user. So for Moray, he is definitely a tank. So you should consider using the Icebound set on him. You can also use the Imperial set on him. And there is a case to use a Sage set. Actually, no. His second ability is passive, so there's no way you're using a Sage set. So for Moray, it's pretty much just Icebound or Imperial. Both are equally good for him. Next is Anson. He is a shaman, he is a magic attack user, and he is also a healer. So as I said before, for healers, it's usually Oracle set. Sage set is in consideration if you want to keep using his abilities. And his first ability is really good. So there, especially if you have a carry, uh, a single target physical attack carry or highest or attack carry. So, like for example, if your Yoomir is a very high level, you can just use Anson on a Sage set and let him keep using his first ability on your Yoomir. So those are the two sets. I personally use Oracle on Anson, but Sage is pretty good. Next is Santiago. He's a ranger. He is a physical attack um, damage dealer. He has two abilities that have cooldowns. So you can use a Fury set on him. You can use an Immortal set on him. I think, in my opinion, Santiago is really good with an Immortal set because his second ability actually prevents the target from launching normal attacks. So if you're fighting enemy teams with one really, really strong hero and a bunch of weaker heroes, he can just disable your opponent's main damage dealer for a really long time. So Immortal set for Santiago Fury is in consideration. Next is Jing. She is an assassin and physical attack damage dealer. So for assassins, as I said, Fury is number one. And her second ability has a really fast cooldown. So, and each use of the skill reduces the cooldown even further. So I don't think there's a consideration for using Immortal on her. So Fury is the only choice. So now we're moving into the Wolfheart tribe. Zigfy is a knight, and he is also a magic attack user or damage dealer. So for Zigfy, his cooldowns aren't really don't really need to be cooled down because his second ability is a passive ability. His first ability is a 10-second cooldown, but you don't really want to spam it. So for him, you just use any of the tank sets, but preferably you use the Imperial set on him because you want him to die and turn into a dragon. So for his second ability to take effect. So I don't think I would personally use Icebound on him, so the only choice would be the Imperial set. Lizza, the Forest Witch, she is a mage. She is a magic attack damage user. Her second ability has no cooldown, so Warlock set is the only set for her. Next, we go to John. He is a warrior. He is a physical attack damage user. He has a really long cooldowns, 12 seconds on the first skill and 8 seconds on the second skill. So if you're not using him as a tank and you're using him as a sort of damage dealer, I would suggest an Immortal set for him. I highly suggest it actually. But if you're using him as a tank, you can still consider the other two tank gear, which is Barbarian set or the Dragon set. Next, we are going with Goetia, Demon Elf, Warrior, and Physical Attack Damage Dealer. So she has pretty good first and second abilities that have cooldowns. So Immortal set is pretty good for her, especially if you're using her as a debuffer. So yeah, Immortal set I think would be the priority for her. There's also a world where you use Fury if she's just your backline damage dealer. There's also a world where she's your tank. You can also use the Dragon set. You can also use the Barbarian set. But she's very flexible and you can use any of the 4 attack sets on her. Flower is an assassin, also a physical attack damage user. And I said with most assassins, Fury is the #1 option. There is a case for her to use the Immortal set because of her really long cooldown on her second ability. And if you inflict more stacks, you tend to do even more damage. So I would say in her case, you can actually use the immortal set as well. And we reach the cursed faction now with Aral, the Waste Spirit. He is a knight and a magic attack damage user. Now, for me personally, I only use Aral for his second ability as a support because it increases the MDef of your heroes, and it also has a chance to silence their target and convert HP to, or damage done to HP. So it greatly buffs the party. So you want him to survive, even though his third skill revives him. So I think the best set for him is Icebound, hands down. And yeah, I don't think I would consider any other set, especially in a normal lineup. In Test of Champions, there are other sets that are okay for him, but in general, Icebound is the best set. And we're going to Dowager, one of the strongest units in the game. She is a warrior. She is a physical attack damage dealer. She's also very flexible. She can be your tank. She can be your hybrid tank DPS. She can be your main DPS. Her abilities are really good. She has two abilities. You would think that Immortal would be good on her, but her second ability has a 20% chance to clear her cooldown when she is attacked. So ideally, you want her in the front line and to get hit a lot, so she can keep spamming her second skill. So because that is the case, you don't need the Immortal set to lower the cooldown of her first and second ability. So for her, it would be really good if she stayed alive and can continue using her second ability, which is why for a frontliner, the dragon set is really good on her. As a backliner, if you already have two tanks in front, Fury is really good because she can deal a lot of damage in a small amount of time. And it also hits everybody in the screen, so Fury is really good. And there is still a case for her to use the Barb set, but in general, I would go Fury or Dragon set if I'm using a Dowager. Next, we're moving on to the rebooted faction. Knight Big Daddy is a knight, and he's also a magic attack damage dealer. So as you can see, he has two abilities that have cooldowns. So there is a case for you to use a Sage set on him. But in general, because Big Daddy is so tanky, I would actually suggest the Imperial set on him because he can just keep reflecting damage. Although his first skill already does reflect damage, you can reflect even more. But yeah, Sage is also really good because his second ability knocks the enemy back, and if you want to disrupt the opponent's positioning and lineup, there's also a really good case for him to keep using Uppercut and knock the enemies closer, separate the teams a little bit. So I think those are the two main sets you would use for him. There's also a case to use the Icebound set on him, but I don't think Big Daddy's survivability is a question. So I think you just reflect as much damage as you can or disrupt the enemy as much as you can. So it's either Sage or Imperial set. Gabriel is a warrior. He's also a physical attack damage user. He has two abilities with cooldowns. So typically for me, I would like to use the Immortal set on him, especially because he grants the skill called Divine Revelation to the hero with the highest attack. So he's a buffer as well, a support. So he can just, if he's not your main damage dealer, he can keep using his second ability to buff your main target. So I would suggest, highly suggest Immortal set on him. But if you have no tanks and he's forced to be a tank, then you can also consider Dragon set on him, and you can also consider the Barbarian set on him. And that's it for our SSR heroes. I hope you learned something in this guide today, and hopefully the ideas that I gave will help you formulate the sets for new heroes or other lower SR or R heroes that you plan to use in the future. And yeah, if you have any questions for any heroes, you can place them in the comments below. Let me know what video you want to see next. I'm thinking of making a bounty board guide, which I'm still getting data for, but once I get that, that will be the next video. So yeah, if you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, share the video, and see you in the next one. Bye guys!